Hello. Back with the gene keys. Okay. This is the 61st gene key, the shadow of psychosis, the gift of inspiration, and the city of sanctity. This is my pearl. So that means that this is at the center of my relationship path, my career path, my life path. Like the 61st gene key is at the center of my hologenetic profile. This is it says the single integrating point within you. Harmony and prosperity. Okay, so the 61st gene key. You start talking because I talking. Love. You're a little hot, huh? You're a little hot. I know. But it's so cold outside. What can I do to help you? Is that a little better? Is that a little better? Yeah. But you still want something pushed up against your butt to keep you in place. How's that? Oh, I just figured it out, huh? Love. Pretty. Good girl. Okay. The pressure of why. Right now we're going over the shadow, psychosis. Generally seen as a mental affliction rooted in chemistry, psychosis is associated with disorganized thinking and delusional beliefs. What the 61st shadow will show is that psychosis, which entails a loss of contact with reality, is the background consciousness of almost all human beings. Psychosis is, in fact, the ordinary state of the mass consciousness of humanity in the world today. That's a pretty deep statement. Which means that most of the world today has disorganized thinking and delusional beliefs. Cute little boat. Okay. It is through the narrow gate of the 61st gene key that a great question permeates the world of human beings. The question of why. The question why is in fact an aberration caused by the limitations of our current awareness. Both right and left hemispheres of the brain grapple with an answer to this question, but both are ultimately destined to fail. The right hemisphere seeks to end the pressure through religion, whilst the left seeks to end the pressure through science. Until humanity's final evolutionary leap takes place, we will remain in a state of psychosis. Our minds will continually drive us consciously or unconsciously to seek an answer to the question or try to find release from the pressure behind the question. That's important, right? What we're doing is seeking to release the pressure, okay? Yet it produces a deep dilemma. It prevents us from actually experiencing reality. Even those sensitive people who do become aware and can see an inevitable human slide into even those sensitive people who do become aware and can see an inevitable human slide into self-destruction are caught within the dilemma. The dilemma is that you cannot fix the psychosis from within the psychosis. Which is interesting because you kind of have to go into it in order to overcome it. Only when the frequency passes through your individual genetic coding, rises to a sufficient level can you begin to perceive reality. At the very highest levels beyond that, reality is indeed experienced in all its infinite splendor. The 61st shadow holds a single great flaw, the flaw of worship. Sorry, I heard something. The moment you worship another, you set yourself below them. You guarantee that your frequency will remain at that low level and be severely impaired. You need to understand that here, there's a difference between worship and devotion. Devotion contains the seed of individual dissolution, whereas worship requires a basic duality between you and your God. The only way to release the pressure of the 61st shadow is to step right into the heart of the pressure, rather than constantly trying to make it go away. Stepping into the pure pressure from the 61st shadow will shatter the intellect completely, quite possibly inducing a state of acute psychosis in which you undergo a spiritual and/or mental breakdown or breakthrough. In order for this delicate shattering process to occur safely, a person must pass through an organic preparatory period in which the hold of the human intellect and its false reality is progressively loosened. This pressure of the 61st shadow also feeds the scientific mind. Thus, the scientific mind is also set up to fail in delivering a release from the pressure, because the question of why is an unanswerable and rhetorical question. Science cannot even truly answer the question of how, because how is a derivation of why. Today, we are witnessing the last desperate throes of the intellect as it tries to understand a question that cannot be understood intellectually. Ultimately, as we shall see, the question can only be answered when it has become one with your consciousness, at which point it paradoxically dissolves. So you can't worship, and you can't science your way into the answer. Because to worship a God that is outside of yourself is to see yourself as being separate from that. But you're not. And to look at it scientifically is, to seek an answer for something that can't be grasped. Disenchantment occurs when one turns away from the pressure. This is the repressive nature specifically. So the shadows have a repressive nature and a reactive nature. And the repressive nature of psychosis leaves you disenchanted. Disenchantment occurs when one turns away from the pressure of the 61st shadow. Disenchantment is an inner giving up that usually has its roots in our childhood conditioning. The inner question scares us because if we pursue it, we will have to break away from all that feels comfortable. We will have to set off on a personal quest, and that will take us away from the status quo. Furthermore, the inner quest is a dangerous path and can only be traveled alone. When the 61st shadow is refracted through a repressive nature, these people go the traditional route. However, deep down inside them, the question remains, and disenchantment becomes their true inner state. No matter how hard they try or how much they gain and succeed in the world, inwardly they remain unfulfilled and restless. When you stay so rooted in reality that you don't allow yourself any stretch of imagination. You don't allow yourself to be delusional at all. I just can't imagine looking at the clouds and not seeing anything. But the reactive nature, when you react to the psychosis, it becomes fanatical. The reactive human nature becomes obsessed by the question coming through the 61st shadow. That question of why. Rather than pass through the gauntlet of the 61st gift of inspiration, these people become frozen and fixed on a single answer to their inner question. What they do is place an intellectual... I'm dropping things. Sorry. What they do is place an intellectual answer over the top of the question, and they build their reality around that answer. By rigidly holding on to their answer, they also have to deal with the psychotic dilemma of having found the only true answer to the greatest question of existence. Beneath the surface of every reactive nature is a well of insecurity that bubbles to the surface of anger. This anger further protects them from having to deal with the true question within them. There is so much here. And noting on the only true answer to the great question of existence, I remember a few years ago having this frantic conversation with my mom, who doesn't grasp any of this. Very Catholic. And I was like, maybe your God is real just because you believe that he's real. And maybe you're going to go to the heaven that you believe in simply because you believe in it. What if belief in something is what makes that something real? And only when you stop believing in something does it lose its place in this reality. I'm just so ready to get on to the next one. The gift of inspiration. And it's a really, really short section on the gift before it gets to the siddhi. Especially after such a long shadow. Psychosis is really difficult to understand. That question of why. They say, I think one of the recommended things, I don't know, for figuring out the importance of things in your life is to ask yourself why 5 times. Go down into 5 layers of depth of why. But if you do that enough, it's like trying to reach 0 or infinity. It's not possible to actually get there. Eventually you come to a paradox. Trying to ask why everything is the way that it is. Yeah, it's a question that's not even worth going down. Or maybe, it is worth going down, but only for the sake of learning and figuring out that there is no answer. I'm going to read the gift of inspiration now. Yeah, check back in later.